Alright guys, so the first thing I'm going to do is just log into my AWS console, and then I'm going to go to Lambda. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make the most basic Python Lambda function. So to do that, we just click create function, and we're going to author it from scratch. And I'm just going to call it simple test. And we're not limited to just Python. There's a bunch of other supported languages here. I'm going to go with Python 3.6 because that's what I think that's the interpreter that I'm running on my computer right now. Change so permissions. Here we're going to create a new role and just name it whatever you want. I'm going to call it simple role. And then we need the Lambda function to have certain permissions. So by default, the Lambda function at least needs permissions to write to CloudWatch because that's where all the logs go. So it's going to give that permission by default, and then we're going to also add this S3 object read-only permissions, and this is going to let us access our bucket. And that's all. That's all that we need. So let's click create. Oh, I already clicked it, so this will take a few seconds. All right. So what we need to do now is we actually have to head over to S3. So I'm going to go to S3, and I'm just going to, just for the purposes of this video, I'm going to make a new bucket. Call it whatever you want. And I'm just going to click next through all this. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to Lambda. Go to our simple test Lambda function. And we need to add a trigger. So our trigger is going to be an S3 event. So you can see these are all like valid triggers. So, an Alexa event could be a trigger. So if you say like, hey Alexa, do this, that could trigger. We have DynamoDB, so any database type stuff. But we're going to do S3. We want all object create events. So anytime an object's created, we could do it if it's deleted. There's a lot of stuff you can do here, but we're just going to keep it simple and do all object create events. Just leave this all default and then click this. Oh, we need to pick what bucket. So we want the new one we just made. Alright, click add. Okay, so now what are we looking at? It's kind of confusing at first. We need to click here to actually access our function. So click this thing. And this is like the default boilerplate function that they give you. So we're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to have it print this is the event. And if you see here, this function by default takes these parameters. So this event and context. And this is required for a Lambda function to work. So we're just going to leave that as it is, and we're just going to print out the event. And I want to show you what is actually in the event. So just click deploy since we edited it. And that's it. We should be up and running. So what I'm going to do is go back to S3 and upload an image. So let's pick one of my drone images and just click next. Alright, and now go back to Lambda and go to monitoring. And you see here, oh no, never mind. If we go to view logs and CloudWatch, we should see something. We should see what we printed out. So if we look at the time, so 15:55 and it's 16 now, so this is it. So here it is. Remember we printed out this is the event and then we put in that event variable. So if we open it up, this is just a bunch of details about that the object that we uploaded to S3. So we have the region, the time, the name, the bucket, the object key. So this is how we know, this is how we can figure out the location of the image that we want to do something with, if that makes sense. So that's an example of a really basic Lambda function that just prints out the event, but we really want to do cooler things. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how can you actually upload your own Python code, because you're not, who's going to code everything in this little window. And I also want to address what happens when you need to import different modules, because for the GPS, for the video that the demonstration I showed you earlier, where I added images to that database, that required, first it required Pillow, the Pillow library, which helps you extract image metadata. And then we also needed a Postgres module that let us connect to a Postgres database in Python. So all that stuff's important. So I'll talk about that in the next video.